name is Joe Dimino. I'm a Senior Research Associate at the Instructional Research Group in Los Alamitos, California. Systematic instruction is very important in all three tiers of the RTA model, and when we talk about systematic instruction, we're talking about taking the skills and teaching them from the easiest to the hardest. We teach them one at a time in isolation, and then we integrate them. The alignment between the core reading program and Tier 2 intervention programs is really not critical. What we're looking for would be instruction that is explicit and systematic. Let's talk about a second grade child. You have a second grade child who's in Tier 1 instruction, but is reading on a first grade level, and so is also getting Tier 2 instruction, but getting the skills, the first grade skills, because he's reading a year below grade level. So consequently, let's take phonics, those skills aren't going to match, because in beginning first grade, you're going to be learning your consonants and your short vowels, whereas in second grade, you're going to be learning digraphs and diphthongs and doubling to add ing and ed and things like that, so they're not going to match. The critical issue is the design of the instruction in the intervention program. The foundational reading skills in Tier 2 intervention should be phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. In kindergarten, you would focus on phonemic awareness and phonics and maybe some listening comprehension. So as the child gets older, then the skills would change. So for example, in second grade, phonemic awareness is usually dropped, and they add more comprehension and vocabulary. In first grade, for example, when we come to fluency, in the beginning of first grade, we just teach the students the high-frequency words. These are the words that show up 75% of the time in things that they read. Words like the, and was, and said. And many of those high-frequency words are words that do not follow the phonic rules or generalizations that they're taught. So they just have to look at them and recognize them and say them. At the middle of first grade, then we begin with fluency with connected text. And the reason why we do that is typically beginning first graders don't know how to read, so you don't want to give them instruction in fluency. When selecting Tier 2 intervention programs, administrators should look for explicit instruction. They should look for programs where there are think-alouds suggested, very explicit think-alouds suggested for the teacher. There's lots of modeling, lots of guided practice before the children go into independent practice. There should be specific error correction procedures that the teacher would use with the students when they make a mistake. They should also make sure that there's mastery built in, that the students learn those skills to mastery. They want to look at the scope and sequence. And by that I mean, let's take phonemic awareness. What skills are in the phonemic awareness component? Are they complete? Are there skills missing in the phonemic awareness component or any component that are critical for a student learning how to read? And the last thing to look for is cumulative review. We want to make sure that those skills are consistently reviewed so that they can maintain the mastery that they achieved when they were first introduced. Delivery for Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction is basically the same. We want to build skills gradually. We want to use systematic instruction with teachers thinking aloud and modeling. But the difference with Tier 2 is that the pace is going to be a little bit faster than Tier 3. Also, what's important in Tier 2 and Tier 3 is corrective feedback. We want to make sure that errors are corrected immediately. And also, when we consider feedback that is not corrective, it's always good to tell the students when they give you a correct answer why it's correct. So we want to just make sure that we have really good explicit feedback. Regarding grouping for Tier 2, 6 of the 11 studies that we looked at, there was one-to-one instruction, and the remaining, there were 2 to 6 students in the group. The important thing that we have to consider are the variables of intensity and duration. So, for example, there was a study in first grade. There was 10 minutes of instruction for 8 weeks in phonemic awareness, and there was no effect. Now, we could look at those variables and say, if you increase the time, the intensity and duration, that perhaps there would have been an effect in that study. So, based on this evidence, we have recommended that the groups for Tier 2 instruction be 3 to 4 students.